water voles and the project. And well done, Chloe, for getting our name change right, because I've slipped up a couple of times this week. So some of you may know us by our previous organisation name, which was INC or INCC, or, and this is part of the reason we have made the change, the Initiative for Nature Conservation Cymru. And I always rush that last bit because it's a bit of a name, isn't it? So now we're Wild Cymru, and I am the conservation officer for Wild Cymru's Upland Water Vole Project. I started with the project about 2 years ago. And I was going to say, if you've got any questions going through, then please obviously put them in the chat box, and please feel free to stop me, Chloe, because I'm happy to answer them as I go through, because I can ramble on because I'm very passionate about it. So yeah, we'll be talking tonight about the project, which is set in the uplands of Glamorgan, and obviously about water voles, which yeah, they are in a lot of trouble, and you'll probably hear me say this a few times this evening, but they are the fastest declining mammals in Britain ever, which I think is fairly significant. There's been a sort of over 90% decline in their range in the last, or over the last 40 years. Not sure if you're aware, but in the Wind in the Willows, Ratty, which was not the best name for him because that's the actual animal they get confused with, but Ratty was a water vole in Wind in the Willows. But just a quick overview of what we'll be talking about. So first of all, we'll look at the ecology and their conservation. We'll just look at some sort of physical features, and also surveying. We'll look at the signs, the field signs that we look for when we're surveying. We'll look at the threats, mainly based the first lot of threats in the lowlands. They are more traditionally associated with lowland habitats, but as I'll go on to tell you that certainly in Scotland anyway, they discovered them earlier, but in Wales we've discovered them. There's a stronghold, and it's of sort of national significance, to be honest, in the uplands of Glamorgan. And we'll talk about the different habitat in the uplands and the different threats that they face up there, and obviously a bit about what we're doing up there. But first of all, a little bit about us. So we have had a recent name change. We're now Wild Cymru, and we are a completely independent nature conservation organisation. We're the only one in Wales, as far as I know, and we don't take or accept any government funding. And that allows us to hold decision makers and organisations like NRW to account if they're not doing the things that they should be. We want to be a voice for nature, and it's a powerful thing to have, to be able to hold these different organisations to account. But here's some of the things that the organisation does work-wise. So we do species and habitat restoration. So the one that stands out here is, and I believe we were the first organisation in Wales to do a successful reintroduction of the endangered marsh fritillary butterfly on Llantris and Common, and that's been fantastic. I was there earlier in the week, and they're doing habitat management, so lots of grazing and cutting to get that optimal habitat for the marsh fritillary. Research and surveys and monitoring, so this project being one of them. So we'll gather lots of data and obviously doing the surveys of the water vole, and habitat management and landowner advisory. So we work with numerous landowners in Wales, one in Glamorgan, one in the Vale of Glamorgan, one in Pembrokeshire, and one in Ceredigion. And we help advise sort of habitat restoration and habitat creation. And community is a huge part of it. I mean, doing a talk like this, but we also do sort of pop-ups, or certainly with my project anyway. But some of our main work concerns litigation. Sort of raising legal cases against our statutory regulating body, NRW, and we have been successful in a few of these, which is really good work, and advocacy and campaigning for nature as well. And one of our best forms of advocacy is our Natur Cymru subscriptions. I'm not sure if some of you know about this already. I mean, I'm biased because I obviously work for Wild Cymru, but I was actually subscribed to this before I started working for them. And it's a really, really fantastic magazine with different articles and stories of nature conservation happening right across Wales. So it's all based in Wales, and sort of things happening with different species and habitats. Yeah, I was lucky enough to write an article about the Water Vole Project in one of the copies in 2024, which, yeah, I felt really privileged to do that, to be honest, because there's some really great articles written in there, and it's completely sustainable. So the paper down to the ink, and it's also not for profit as well. But on to our water voles, and there are in fact 3 mainland species of water vole. There are ones which exist on islands. There's the skoma vole, but we'll concentrate on the mainland ones, particularly the water vole. So you've got the water vole, which is bigger, is the biggest vole in the UK. And also you have the field vole or the short tail vole. And they're very similar. If you haven't got context on your if you've got trail camera footage of them and you haven't got the context, I'll show you a photo of the field vole now. It's quite easy to get them muddled up. And also you've got the bank vole, which is a sort of a richer chestnut brown in colour. But they're very vole-like, if that's a thing. They've got quite blunted sort of ears, so the ears are quite hidden, and that muzzle at the front there is blunted, and those sort of orange teeth. They are. I'm trying because I normally present this to a live audience, so I'm struggling to think of. No, I'm not even going to guess that. I'll have to show you afterwards. But they're vegetarians, so they're herbivorous, and research has shown they feed on around 220 to 230 species of plants, and they have to eat about 80% of their body weight each day. So any herbivore, really, there's not much nutritional value in those plants. So they've really got to sort of spend a lot of time eating. This footage actually was taken from a reintroduction around by me on the River Thor in the Vale of Glamorgan. But yeah, so this is the field vole. This is the one, if you haven't got the size context, it can be confused with. So you can see there that it's very similar, those blunted muzzle and hidden ears. But that's in a trap there, and obviously released afterwards. But this seems to be the one that it's confused with the most. It's the brown rat, and as I say, it didn't really help when Kenneth Graham called the water vole in Wind in the Willows ratty. But as you can see there, I mean, I don't really need to say, but they are quite different. It's a far more pointed muzzle. The ears are far more prominent. Slightly different colour, sort of slightly more grey, but also that naked tail as well. So water voles do have a furry tail, and the tail on a brown rat is far longer. In terms of colour, they do have a subspecies of water vole in Scotland, which are a lot darker in colour, almost black. But then you can see there that they are quite different. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure where the confusion comes in, to be honest. But this is really, really optimal habitat for water voles. So this is on the River Thor, which flows through the Vale of Glamorgan. It's actually the only true lowland river in Wales. I'm not sure if you knew that. And in terms of why it's optimal for habitat for water vole, you can probably see there the flow of the water. It's very calm, it's very still, because despite their name, water vole, they are in fact not that competent in swimming. They can, but they're not all that great in doing it. And the other thing to note is the bankside vegetation. You know, it's really well vegetated along both banks. And indeed, in the channel itself, that emergent vegetation, I think that might be floating sweetgrass. I hope there's no botanists on here to correct me. But then lots of grass species, lots of forbs and herbaceous plants running along there. And also, you can note on the top left there, if you do have livestock, it's conservation work. They can obviously fence the cattle off, which prevents them more from sort of poaching and trampling, to be honest, because I'll come on to speaking about cattle, and they are, you know, the best conservationists we can have. They can also burrow, so that's sort of soft, earthy soil in the bank there. So take note of that habitat. That is absolutely optimal for water vole. So we move on. So this is more typical habitat, or sorry, not habitat. This is more typical of rivers and waterways in the uplands. And this is not so good. This is quite unsuitable actually for water vole. So the rivers, we all know we've had a downpour today, or at least I have. We get a lot of rain in Wales, and the rivers get particularly fast flowing and spatey. And the thing to note here as well is the rocky substrate. So they need to burrow into the bank. And I think that would be fairly challenging for them to do into the rock. And also the trees as well, because believe it or not, they are quite a tricky species to manage for. So they require that riparian vegetation for both cover and for food. And you can have trees dotted along a waterway. That's okay because it won't shade out and stop the growth of the vegetation on the bank. But when you've got sort of the canopy is almost closed, as it is in this example, it sort of shades out and it won't allow that sort of critical vegetation to grow, which they need. It's a real requirement. And this is another example. I think this is actually a different angle of the original photo, but this is the optimal habitat they're looking for in comparison to that upland river. And anything that really has that vegetation and wetlands like this, so lakes, ponds. This is really, really lovely habitat. This is a canal. I think it might be the Neath Canal. And again, at this point in time, that's looking fairly good. Lots of meadowsweet, that sort of frothy white creamy flower on the left there. They'll love that. But if you took your eye off the ball and those trees were sort of not maintained over the next few decades, that would shade out that vegetation and it would no longer be suitable for them. So moving on to the field signs, this is what we actually look for in the field when we're surveying. So we have the holes in the bank side there. They are water vole burrows, and they are they're fairly rounded, but the textbooks say they're slightly flattened, so they're slightly wider than they are tall. But in fact, that's again, this is textbook. It's the opposite to what the brown rat which is slightly higher than it is tall. But to be honest with you, I think you would need to gather um, other evidence as well as just a burrow to sort of confirm you had water vole present. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but in the entrance there, if I pan in on that, this is a water vole latrine. And when we survey anyway, this is the only real droppings and latrines. This is the only field sign that we can sort of accept and take as a sort of 100% positive to having water vole present. But what happens during the breeding season or the survey season then, and which runs from about March till October time, that's when they're the most active, is that it's a territory marker. Lots of other species do it. Otters spraint, for example. And it's a bit like I did some training with the South Wales Otters Trust, and it was a really good analogy of what a latrine is. And they said it was like social media, Facebook for the species. So what the water vole is telling other water voles within the vicinity is effectively this is either my territory, or if it's that time of year for breeding, then it might send another message. So yeah, it's just full of messages which it'd be really intriguing to decode it, to be honest. But it's generally a territory marker. And these are the droppings. So again, they might not look specific, but they really are in terms of looking for droppings and scat in the field. The water vole, you will know it. You get your eye in for it, and I say there's nothing else like it. Again, coming back to the brown rat. So with the water vole droppings, there's the dimensions there, but they're typically rounded at both ends, whereas with the rat droppings, they tend to, and this is sort of typical of a more an omnivore sort of diet. They tend to be tapered at one end. That's not a guarantee. I mean, the way you guarantee it is probably the smell, to be absolutely honest. And if you really want to get technical, with a water vole dropping, I would recommend. Well, the water vole would be fine because it's basically, as I say, a diet of plants only. But if you roll one between your sort of, or squash one between your forefinger and thumb, it's quite pasty. It's just got sort of vegetation in it. If you were, however, to do it with a rat, I recommend you put gloves on. It's quite gritty, and you certainly know from the smell that it's not a water vole. I'd say probably to compare it to anything, I would say it's most similar to Tic Tacs, to be honest. Rob's joke is they don't taste the same, so I'll give him that. Rob is my boss, Rob Parry, by the way, if I mention him a few times. And this is a feeding station or a food pile, and this is quite typical of a water vole. Again, if we find this, we like to find that supporting evidence of as well as the latrines and the droppings. This can be anything. I've actually got the measurement for this one. Anything sort of greater than 10 to 15 centimeters in length. I found whole pieces of rush in the field. And then you sort of start sort of frantically searching then for those latrines or droppings. But what seems sort of fairly typical of the water vole is it sort of comes in this parallel pile. And what they do is they sort of gnaw off a few pieces of vegetation, which coincidentally is it's 45, it's gnawed at a sort of a quite a specific 45-degree angle. So I know that comes up a lot, but again, be careful you're not confusing it with the field vole, because their habitats do overlap quite a lot. But then they sort of gnaw these pieces and then they drag them to a sort of a safe place to eat, these sort of platforms that have cover so they can safely eat them. But as they're pulling it to this sort of safe haven, it sort of all goes in line. So it's an observation I've heard a few people say, including myself. I've seen it. As compared to the slightly messier field vole, the pieces do tend to be a lot smaller, so sort of less than 10 centimeters, or even 5 to 10 centimeters. And also just everything is on a miniaturized, besides the animal itself, everything's on a miniaturized scale. So the food pile is, and also the droppings as well. So yeah, basically everything is just downsized. So why are we so concerned about waterfalls? Why have we done this project? Why is there so much conservation work going on to save waterfalls? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, I said I would say it a few times. They are in serious decline. They're the fastest declining mammal in Britain, and we've probably lost certainly over 90%, perhaps 95% of their former range across Britain. And effectively, it's like any endangered species, really. They're on the brink of extinction if we do nothing, and we just sit and watch the decline, which none of us want. Give it 30, 40, 50 years. That next generation might not have even heard of a water vole, to be absolutely honest. And that's the trouble with a species that was so abundant. Um, Sometimes it's a real joy. I've had a few people, slightly older generation, come to me and said, "Gosh, I used to see them as a child in the brook or the stream down the bottom of the garden, and I think, oh wow, what a marvelous thing to be able to see that naturally in the wild." But that is typical, perhaps, of a species that is so abundant. You take your eye off the ball. It's probably a bit equivalent to, if, I don't know, if a wood pigeon, in sort of 100, 200 years' time was going extinct. You just wouldn't expect it. And I can imagine sort of back in the 80s that there was, I'll take an example of two conservationists go to a pub, and there's sort of one says to the other, "Well, I haven't really seen any water voles recently." And the other sort of said, "No, you're right." And it went from there, really, and sort of extensive survey effort was done, and it really did show that in the blink of an eye, in the blink of a few decades, they really had depleted in numbers. If you do want to go and see them, they're not typically wild. They have been reintroduced there. There was a successful reintroduction there. It's Cosmoston Lakes near Penarth. So I'm sure a few of you have heard of it, but they did a successful reintroduction there, um, 2016, I think, and they are doing really well. And there's you can, if you go early enough in the morning before sort of everyone arrives and dog walkers, etc. You can sometimes, if you listen, they're not on the main lakes, or at least I don't see them there. It's a small area next to the car park, that you have a walkway, which sort of bifurcates two sort of small uh, ponds, and you can actually hear them sometimes if you sort of get your ear in, and they're there obviously, and you can see sort of the vegetation, the top of the vegetation moving. And if you're sort of careful and you sort of tilt your head in the right way, I have seen them there a few times. So yeah, that's a recommendation anyway. But that's that really optimal lush habitat on the River Thor again. But we'll just take a look now at some of the threats, some of the pressures which have impacted water vole. This is more in the lowlands, but one thing is overgrazing. Um, and unfortunately, those white things in the background are not conservationists aren't very pro sheep, to be absolutely honest. And it's related. They graze very, very close to the ground. It's the nature of the way that they graze, and they take the grass right down. If you sort of look at different fields, you know, I know immediately if it's been grazed by sheep. And conversely, if you compare that to cattle, which, as Rob says, are some of the best conservationists we have, um, they feed in a different way, and they wrap their tongues around the vegetation and they pull. And what that does is it's termed in the field that they create a diversity of the sward, is the technical sort of term for it. But basically, what that means is they create a variation of different heights of vegetation, so they don't strip it right back like the sheep. And although, you know, they might trample a few water vole burrows, they do one crucial thing that certainly sheep don't. Sheep are selective grazers, cattle aren't. They will keep that scrub down. So you can imagine, particularly with grassland conservation, employing cattle to do the work is really advantageous. So yeah, if anything, you come away from this talk, cattle are the best conservationists. And there they are, looking very innocent. But this photo here, I think, sums up and represents a lot of things that have gone wrong for water vole over the past sort of 50 plus years. So once upon a time, this was this would have been a really lush wetland. So to the left of the reeds there, to the left of the bank, all that where you can see sheep there, and that's they're obviously grazing in there. You can see that a mile off, but that used to be historically a really perfect wetland habitat for them. And I'm sure a lot of you know that after the Second World War, we wanted, or the British government, we wanted our own food security. So farmers were literally encouraged, sorry, to dig for Britain, and they were encouraged. I say dig for Britain. That's more arable farming, but in terms of grazing livestock, what they would do is they would drain those wetlands. So that you'd be able to put sheep, etc., on there to graze, and it was the dawn of sort of the real intensification of agriculture. So what was, you would have had several hundred water vole in there at one point. I believe they are still at this location. So this is the Dyfi in mid Wales. So I think they are hanging on in there. But they are now, because it has been drained, and they were forced into that ditch that you can see there. So it's what we would call these days, you know, pretty fair. You know, you'd certainly do a survey there to see if they were there, but compared to what it was, it's really suboptimal compared to what it was back before the war. And we forced them into these ditches, and then we sent in. I mean, this was the nail in the coffin for them, really. This is one of their biggest threats. And this is the American mink. So this is a non-native, as you can guess by as you can guess by the common name. They come from North America, and this really was the nail in the coffin for them. So uh, their food, actually, the American mink, their food over in America is quite similar really to water vole, or one of their prey anyway. It's the muskrat. And you can imagine that, and they occupy similar niches. So, but the trouble was with the water vole, and this sort of represents invasive species as a whole. Sort of invasive species were introduced, from plants and animals over the last couple of centuries, really. I know the Victorians did a really good job, certainly with plants anyway, of introducing things like Himalayan balsam and Japanese knotweed, etc. But it's all to do with the native wildlife didn't evolve alongside these invasive non-native species. And because of that, certainly with the animals anyway, they didn't develop a defense mechanism. But why are the mink here? Well, they were introduced for the fur trade, really not a good thing at all. Sort of in the 20th century, it varies really, some at the beginning, some in the mid 20th century. And between various things like the bad husbandry, not looking after them properly, and escapes, so they escaped due to that. And as well, I'm sure they had every good intention at the time, but also animal activists released a lot towards the end, really. And they are now prevalent and have really established themselves right across Britain. Um, they're part of the mustelid family. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. And they're just such efficient predators. Really, we really, really don't like our non-native invasives, but you can't help but sort of marvel at how good a predator they are. So they're omnivorous, sorry, they're opportunistic, and the mustelid family sort of includes, it's quite a long body, quite close to the ground, quite fast as well, which is optimal for being a predator. But so some other examples are the weasel, the stoat, the polecat, pine marten in sort of mid Wales now, the otter, and also the badger. Badger for me seems to be the odd one out there, but they're all part of that family. And the function, although water vole are sort of compared to beaver slightly, they're miniature sort of ecosystem engineers. They do some, good work along the banks. To be absolutely honest with you, their function in the ecosystem is to act as food. They're pretty much the Mars bar of the natural world, to be honest. So their function is prey, unfortunately for them. It's a good job, to be honest. They are rodents, so they breed like rodents, and they are able, is probably the reason they're still hanging on. They are able to bounce back. But they have lots of native predators, including this fish here. But it ranges from aerial predators like owls, bitterns, herons. So I think, yeah, there's a bittern there. Uh, say fish, stoats, polecats, foxes, badgers, otters. Um, I'll move on quickly from this next slide, but this is in fact, it's a bit of typical behavior of an otter. They sort of skinned and they turn inside out their prey sometimes. So I'll quickly move on from that, to be honest. Um, but the thing is, again, I mentioned before, all those predators, the water vole has developed a defense against them. So, for example, an aerial predator like a bird of prey, the water vole will take to the water, and that's its defense there. For an otter, something like that, it can hide in its burrow. But with American mink, these animals can get them on the land, the water, and in their burrows. And if a female sets up a den, and that territory overlaps with a water vole colony, they will effectively they will harvest the water vole. So they will go in and out of the burrows, and within no time at all, they will harvest the entire colony and cause local extinctions. I heard the other day, I was in a meeting, and apparently, well, not apparently, in northern England, American mink desecrated a colony of terns in just one night. So it just shows how much of a pressure and an impact they have on our native wildlife. They not only affect water vole, they also affect and will prey on ground nesting birds, on waterfowl, and you know, it really does impact a lot of species. Males, they pass through, and they will take water vole, but it's that female, and the females can also fit in the water vole burrow, so it's really dangerous if those two territories overlap. Thankfully for us, the water vole, they prefer, possibly, as we all do, a lowland environment. So it's more hospitable. There's more prey down in the lowlands, and generally it's a lot more, it's a lot kinder of an environment. It's less harsh up there. But this is upland habitat. We all know the sort of the forestry up there. You know you're in the uplands when you see loads of conifer plantation up there. And it's really challenging up there. You know, I can walk outside my front door where I live in the Vale, in the lowlands. And by the time I've got up to, I'll come to talk about the project area, it's completely lashing down with rain. So I'm always armed with my waterproofs, etc. And this is it for them, really. I don't really know. They're eking out a living up here. But this is Molinia, purple moorgrass. I'm sure lots of you have heard of it. It's the only deciduous grass in Britain, I believe. And they're really sort of trying their best up here to stay alive and survive. You know, if they stumbled across Rose Bay willow herb, it's a bit like fish and chips on a Friday night. It's really barren up there. So yeah, that's sort of, and these are the ditches that we'll be surveying in. But just taking a look at these maps and the conservation and the decline. So this is part of a project, the National Water Vole Database and Mapping Project. So this is every green dot you can see there. So this is running from the middle of the 19th century up until about 2012. And as you can see there, you know, we really had some decent records of them, particularly, I think it's Leicester, because I often wonder what that band of solid green is there. So they really did well there. And over in Norfolk and Suffolk and East Anglia. And in terms of Wales, you know, never huge numbers there, but certainly had a presence in Anglesey in North Wales and Ceredigion there. But also note sort of down in the Vale and Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire, we have got the records there at this point in time. And then fast forwarding, I'll flip back and forth once or twice so you can see the sort of significance of the decline. You know, we've lost, you know, over 90% of them in their former range, in abundance and range. And again, as I mentioned, it's due to them being so common. Just took the eye off the ball, to be honest. But hopefully we're making it up now with the conservation efforts that are being done in various parts of the UK. So I don't know if you can see that red dot there, but back in 2014 there was a glimmer of hope for water voles in Wales, and a lot of excitement in the water vole and indeed conservation community in Wales. Um, and this is where we survey that yellow dot there. This is where the first sort of record in the uplands of Glamorgan. This is where the first water vole was found. It's right in the centre of the Glamorgan uplands in the Rhondda Valley, the Glamorgan Alps, we sort of affectionately call them. And it's in a absolutely beautiful reserve. It's a wildlife trust reserve, Llynfach, and this is just I don't know if you know the Rigos Mountain road, but it's just off the mountain road, and I highly encourage you to go and visit, because on a sunny day like this, it really makes the job worth it. And we surveyed here, and I think in fact we found the most records here at Llynfach, but it really is a beautiful lake. It's designated a triple SI because of water lobelia, I think. But yeah, they've got a real diversity of species, so they're not just being bored with Molinia and Rush. They've got a few species to tuck into up there. And this is a map of the project area. So coming from the west block, or the west side of the area, the project area. So we've got sort of the Neath Valley in the west, and then making our way across east, you've got the Avon Valley, the Rhondda Valley, where the red dot is, and then across in the east is the Cynon Valley. And a lot of this overlaps with the Pennacymoedd wind farm. I'm sure a lot of you know it's a vast area the wind farm covers, and it's where a lot of our surveying takes place. And it was actually a community fund by the Pennacymoedd Corporation that funded the project. 3 years, if I didn't mention it earlier, from 2024, and it ends next year, which is really sad because I'll have to get another job. But this is, as I say, this is about as good as it gets, really. It's fairly tricky and can be quite dangerous at times to survey. Uh, but again, more photos of the uplands. But because of the danger side of it, you really can, and I have disappeared into a bog. Well, I didn't disappear, but I certainly lost my footing and went in head first. And because of that reason, it can be quite tricky and difficult to take members of the public and the community up there. And we also need permission from NRW. So Natural Resources Wales is the landowner. We obviously have permission to go up there, but moving on to some core aims of the project, what we're trying to do. Well, first of all, find out where they all are, and where they're hiding. And we had a really good survey effort, and it will be throughout the project, but particularly in 2024, that was our main focus. It was just survey, 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 get out across the whole of the project area and get as much surveying done as possible, and to find out what habitats they're using. In the lowlands, they're associated with rivers and streams and etc. But in the uplands, a really successful habitat for them, we found out, is bogs, peat bogs, and particularly when they're good. It's very favourable habitat in terms of they've been restored and re-wetted. Lost peatlands have done a lot of great work up there, but also NRW have done a lot of restoration up there as well. So that sort of wetland habitat, it's really good that these restoration projects are going on, because it's fantastic for the water vole habitat. And also, it's a bit of a tricky one, this one. We've had a few teething problems with it, but how they're moving through the landscape. We want We want to know, are they using the streams? Are they going downstream and then moving across? Are they actually going through the forestry? So yeah, that data would be really great. We're finding that a bit tricky at the moment. And also what threats, what pressures they have up there, compared to the lowlands. I will come on to talking about that in a bit. Um, but as I say, it's getting local people involved as well. So, for example, me doing a talk like this, raising awareness for both water vole and the project. We've done several pop-ups we did one at Dare Valley Country Park. Um, but the other thing which and I didn't really mention this at the beginning, so one of our sort of our USPs is we are completely independent and don't take that funding. But I will say for Wild Cymru, um, they give students who have just graduated and people who are new to the sector a real chance. I'm sure I won't speak for Eliza, my colleague there, because I'm sure she knows way more about water voles than I ever have. But when I first went, I hadn't really done much surveying for them. I really feel that Wild Cymru do give a chance to people new to the sector. I had to know the odd thing or two about it, and hopefully I did fairly well in the interview because it gave me the job. But no, I think that is a thing about Wild Cymru, and they do work a lot. With students and residential weekends, etc. But that's actually a PhD student stood next to me there, Nia. So she is studying for a PhD at Cardiff University. She was actually doing some, it's great data, some work on collecting. So we went out to survey with her because she was a little unfamiliar with how to survey in the uplands, but collecting droppings for her to do gut microbiome analysis. She is still currently working on that at the moment. But as I say, we like to give opportunities and to work alongside, particularly Bridgend College. So I studied a environmental conservation management (HND) in that at the college a few years ago before I started working for Wild Cymru. Um, and it's fantastic because the project area is so vast. Getting a good group of us out there, it really helps. And we've run a few training days up there. So a combination. There's usually always students from Bridgend College. I mean, I was one of them, and it's a really enthusiastic group. So we're really grateful to them. But also we have had several members of the community that received our flyer that was spread across the project area. And there's Rob there in the middle in his very typical jumper that he normally wears out, his survey jumper, sort of explaining the project and how to survey to the volunteers there. But a real sort of supplementary survey technique we found during the time of the project are these water vole burrow cams. So effectively, it's a long box up to about 1 meter long, and there's an entrance hole at one end which sort of mimics a water vole burrow entrance hole, and then we've made it so it feels familiar to the water vole going in. So it looks like a sort of a water vole burrow, and then at the other end, then we place a trail camera with a lens to sort of magnify whatever sort of species is going there. We bait it, so we bait it with apple and carrots and all sorts of lovely things that they never get up there. So they have a party when they go in there, but yeah, we've actually got some great footage, and we found various species of lizards and stoats and weasels, lots of shrews, lots of wood mice and field voles. But yes, they really are a supplementary tool for us, because sometimes we have surveyed, we've not found them there, and it's been fairly good habitat. You think they'd be there. We've put one of these burrow cams out, and then we've discovered that they are in fact there, gone back, resurveyed, and found latrines there. So they've been really useful. So we started off with our first record at Llyngvarch in 2014, and since the project began back in 2024, this might even need updating again, but those are all the records we found to date of water vole there in the Glamorgan uplands. So I think it's really positive news for water voles in Wales. But back last year, keep forgetting it's 2026. Our main focus of last year is, well, we employed two assistant conservation officers, Freya and Laura, to help us. As I say, the project area is vast. So what they did is they helped us collect droppings, collect the water vole droppings, so lots of surveying for DNA relatedness analysis. So we're still currently waiting on those results at the moment, but we're working alongside or working with Aberystwyth University, and they're doing the genetic work to see how related the different colonies are. It's really important work, and it'll raise a lot of questions as well. So if I sort of focus in on those two colonies near Craig-y-Llyn at the top left there. Now you'd expect for the dispersal of a water vole, which is anything up to around 1.5 kilometres, but then again in the uplands, I think it's known to be more than that. But what it'll tell us is you would really expect that Llyngvarch reserve on the left there, that lake, to be related to the colony there on the right-hand side of it at Llyngfawr Reservoir. So this research will be able to tell us the relatedness of those colonies. Are they related? Or is there a dispersal barrier in the way, which has meant that they can't reach each other? So there's a lot of sort of information that we can garner from this work. It's all down to predator avoidance, the way they move around the landscape. But ideally, and we've not been able to do it yet, unfortunately, what we really want to do is to be able to track them, and that really will show how they are moving around the landscape. So radio trackers are used extensively, particularly for tracking in conservation of birds and seeing where birds migrate to, where they overwinter to. I think that's a lesser black-backed gull there with one of the transmitters on the top there. But they've been used. Nobody knew at one point where Manx shearwaters went, and the research led and revealed that they overwinter in Argentina. So it really does provide fantastic information. But at the moment, we're struggling sort of attaching the GPS tracker to them, because at the end of the day, we're trying to save these animals and not put them, not be detrimental to them. And you would have to sort of shave the fur to attach the tracker, and they spend a lot of time in the water, and obviously you don't want anything untoward coming of that. But this it seems slightly absurd, really. But this story sort of catapulted the project and water voles into the media and the limelight a little bit. Edible glitter, so very safe, biodegradable, edible glitter. And one day last year with the students, we made our way up to an NRW hatchery, Cynrig hatchery up in mid Wales. Effectively, what that facility does is it captive breeds different species for reintroductions. So indeed, the water voles that this experiment was tested on were reintroduced into the River Thor that I was showing you earlier. And effectively, what the day was all about was to see whether, first of all, whether they took the whether they turned their nose up at it. So what we did is we cut up the apple and we laced it with there's the water vole droppings again. And this is what we would look for if the glitter went through. And we laced these apple pieces with this glitter. And what we wanted to find out that day anyway was, do they take it? Well, according to the video there, they did indeed. Nope, shot off. And also, you know, a lot of people go home and watch television and various things, but we like to watch the big reveal of whether the glitter actually passed through the gastrointestinal tract of the water vole. That was the whole point of the day. And yeah, Rich from the NRW hatchery, this was the big reveal. And as you can see there, it actually did show up fairly well. Unfortunately, it's at a bit of a standstill at the moment. It's really difficult to mimic things that are done under controlled conditions and in a lab in the wild. Somebody did test it out for us, a master's student from Cardiff, at Cosmiston, funnily enough. And unfortunately, I think, yeah, more work is needed, I guess. But the reason, you know, why on earth were we feeding water voles edible glitter in the first place? Well, again, it's to gather data and it's to see the extent of individual territories within a water vole colony. They can also be used by counting the number of latrines you find. This is a general rule of thumb. The more latrines you've got, you know, maybe quite obviously, the bigger the colony, the bigger the population. But we would feed them. We would have different glitter colours, lacing the apple with these different coloured glitters. And see then track and survey for those latrines I mentioned earlier and see where they ended up. But again, it's a little bit of a work in progress, to be absolutely honest. So everything was going really, really well. You know, the project was going well. We did lots of great work and found out various things. Surveys were going really well. And then all of a sudden, back in 2024, I think we had our first one. This is the burrow cam. And we had one of these show up. We had an American mink in one of the burrow cams. And as I said earlier, they do prefer the lowland environments, a lot less harsh than up here. But from time to time, when the young are dispersing, they do pass through, and they can even set up. You know, that's a really great place for a mink to have a den. You know, lots of entrance holes, and it's going to be safe in there for them. This was actually footage from a friend of mine on the. This was on the River Rhondda, which actually leads directly up to the project area. But fortunately, we got enough money together, as in Wild Cymru did, to employ Natalie, who's the project officer for South Wales, a mink eradication project. It covers 7 different counties, ranging from Neath Port Talbot, Bridgend, the Vale of Glamorgan, Cardiff, Rhondda and Taff, and southern areas of Powys. So Natalie's absolutely fantastic. I was out with her in the Vale earlier today, deploying a couple of mink traps around by me. And as I say, it's a tricky one because we all love wildlife, but unfortunately, these invasive species, they have to be controlled. And so there is now a partnership has been set up, the SWAMP, the South Wales American Mink Partnership, and we're really, really hopeful that we can maintain and sustain funding and eventually create an all Wales mink eradication strategy. But Natalie works for an organisation called the Water Life Recovery Trust, which is down in the southeast of England, and effectively they have pretty much eradicated American mink from East Anglia, with lots of scientific research has gone into it, and they have come up with a strategy, and the proof is in the pudding. They've effectively eradicated them in lots of areas and counties in East Anglia. So it's a really exciting time, I guess, for conservation in Wales and protecting our native species. And if you do get a handle on it, seeing the biodiversity return to Wales, it really does impact a lot. But and we are coming to the end now, just in case you're worrying, I've got loads more slides. Looking at the threats which are specific to the uplands. It's a funny one, this, because climate change, we need to, through technology and green solutions and all sorts of things, we need to stop the planet warming. But it can have its consequences. So the extensive wind farm, the Pennycymoedd wind farm, the green infrastructure that's put in place there. So you've got the forestry track there on the left, which goes right round the forestry, and then sort of branched out that track there leading to the turbine. There's hundreds of tons, I expect, of concrete that goes in to hold these things up, because when you're sort of below them looking up, they're absolutely enormous. But it's in our fight against climate change. And when they did initially start putting these turbines up, they actually had no idea. So I'm certainly not slating the wind farm. They had no idea the water vole were there. So that was, as I say, 2014 when we discovered this. But sort of putting these tracks and things in, it does fragment habitats and destroys habitat. But this now that we know they're up there, this can be mitigated against, and things can be put in place. Areas can be surveyed before this infrastructure is put in place. One of the real big problems, and unfortunately nobody really has responsibility for it, is conifer regen. So we get it naturally down here in the lowlands and everywhere, to be honest. The habitat in Britain, it wants to work towards the succession it's working towards is woodland. It always wants to return to woodland, and through different management practices, we particularly with agriculture, you hold it and you keep the grassland. But with the plantations that are up there, come sort of 25, 35, 40 years of growth, there's the conifer will start mainly Sitka spruce up there. It'll start chucking out cones and seed, and it just grows everywhere, this regen. You could have marvelous work done by the Lost Peatlands Project and NRW, and you turn round and you take your eye off it for 5 minutes, and there's these conifers sort of growing, and I have seen it with peatland. It's there's some great re-wetted peatlands up there. So it's a real problem. And in terms of why it's a problem for water vole, well, it goes back to the whole shading out of the vegetation, and it's it's they need that to survive. They need that to feed on. And there's a real example there of within really established conifer. There's no vegetation there whatsoever, so that's very poor habitat for them. But we're on the final slide now, and in terms of community engagement, as I say, I've done a few of the talks now, and it's a really important part of it. But one of the ways in which we don't want to kill anyone taking them up on site. So one of the ways that we've done this is we've commissioned a company to produce this animation, and it sort of reflects all the challenges, and effectively it's like the day in the life of a water vole in the uplands. So I will be quiet now, and I'll let you enjoy the last minute. Always gets me a little bit choked up watching that. But yeah, there is you can go and donate. You don't feel pressured to. But yeah, that's come to the end of the talk, and thanks so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. That was fab. I love that animation. It's lovely.
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah, such an important project. You're doing, fab work, and I'm looking forward to getting involved with it, hopefully. We have got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll go through them quickly, although I am aware of the time. So if everybody needs
I do.
to shoot off,
everyone. I do tend to bang on a bit, sorry.
But if anybody does need to shoot off, that's absolutely fine. I mean, your email was on the slides throughout the presentation, but you could also maybe put it in the chat if people want to get in touch with you as well. But we've had a question from Martin Thomas. He said, I'm an experienced water vole surveyor who carried out genetic work on a reintroduction project in North Cumbria in the 2000s. You mentioned populations in Ceredigion, where I now live. I'm aware water voles were recently found at Denmark Farm, and wonder how I might be able to become more involved in the conservation in my region of Wales, please. Also, are you using eDNA for surveys, as this recently proved very successful for presence/absence in surveys in Cumbria for both water vole and mink?
Yeah, certainly. Well, if you are experienced, Martin, I would say I must be absolutely honest. Rob will be more on the ball with this than me. I have surveyed up in Ceredigion when Rob dragged me up there just to show the difference between the two different areas. I would say if there's any projects going on up there currently, I'm not sure whether there is, to try and become involved with that.
It looks like, actually, sorry, I've just read further down the chat now. David Kilner.
Yes, David. Oh, hey, David. How are you?
Yeah, they're running a project. They've got water vole at the Tir Natur site in Ceredigion, so they're putting each other in touch. So that's all good. Great.
Yeah, fantastic project. Congratulations, David, on securing that wonderful land. I went to a talk in the Amman Valley the other week near Ammanford, and yeah, one of one of your guys from Tir Natur were there. I can't remember her name, but no, it was a marvelous evening. In terms, sorry, Martin, going back to eDNA, no, we haven't done that. I've brought it up. I understand it can carry a little bit of a price tag as compared to conservation officers getting out and looking for the water vole signs, which I guess is the most effective way. I should imagine we're slightly constrained by our funding budget, if I'm absolutely honest. But I totally agree that it is certainly, if the funding is there and it can be afforded, a really great way to detect, if they really are there. If we weren't finding anything, I think we would resort to it, to be honest.
Fab, thank you. And Cara had asked, she said, I was involved with volunteer surveys in Eryri in approximately 2002, 2004, and since then working as an ecologist. Is there going to be a Wales-wide survey now for water vole?
Being absolutely honest, I mean, I'd love to see, the uplands as becoming more and more of a significant area for them. As I say, it's an interesting one, I guess. As I mentioned with the mink eradication project that is now going on in South Wales, if that can spread, then I wonder if certainly getting baseline data of are they there or not before the eradication sort of project moves into the area. I don't know. I mean, it would be really, really useful. So in areas, Essex being one of them, where you've got this Water Life Recovery Trust, one of their project officers up there, where they've had water vole and they've been in quite a bad way, sort of in abundance in their range. They're really, really starting to recover now as the mink eradication project moves forward. So again, please feel free to send me an email as a reminder if I can't answer the question on here. I would personally rather go to someone like Rob Parry, who's been doing it for over sort of 20, 25 years, who'll be able to give you a sort of a better idea.
Thank you. Going back to David, he's asked if you have a contact for the mink eradication project, or are you that contact?
I can be that contact,
Okay.
David. Not sure if you've got my email still. It's the same one from when you were doing the Dynamic Dunescapes project.
I'll pop it on the chat now.
I would say if you, so I'd have to double check, but if you search for, actually, David, if you email me or send a general inquiry to Wild Cymru, we can certainly put you in contact. But I overlap between the Water Vole Project and the mink eradication project. So although I'm not the project officer, I help her out quite a bit with it. So yeah, send one my way.
Okay. Similarly, Peter and Claire, they've got a site that they're doing some nature conservation work on in Seven Sisters, I want to say, isn't it, Peter? But he was asking he's asked if you were aware of an organisation that would help us with trapping mink at their upland site, but I'm assuming that would also be the mink eradication project.
Yeah,
I
I would, yeah.
Get
So
in
at
touch
the
with you.
moment, yeah, at the moment, she is, if Natalie tries to go slightly outside the boundary, as I say, it's quite a sort of regimental scientific approach. She's got to stay reasonably within that boundary that I sort of, so yeah, but it would be, I'm sure, WRT, unless there is any work going on in that particular area. It is part of the project that we're trying, and if anyone's got any information of mink eradication, these small pockets of work that are going on throughout Wales, it's really, really important that we find out and see where the gaps are. It's really important. Ogmore Fisheries or Ogmore Angling Association got in touch with us. They've been doing it over the last 10 years. and have caught over 170 mink. We had no idea this was going on. They've been doing it themselves, and farmers and anglers are fantastic. The anglers see them a lot. But we need this, we desperately need this coordinated approach to move forward. It's no good in isolation. We've got to all come together for it.
Okay. And then Vicky has asked if there is any opportunity for surveying this season on the project.
Yeah, I'd like to hope so. So we're doing a lot of habitat sort of assessment this year. So it's going to be part of the end of project sort of Upland Water Vole sort of guidance that we're going to produce at the end of the project. But certainly keep an eye out, because yeah, it is part of the project, the community engagement. So yeah, for sure, keep an eye. I can even send stuff over to Chloe, and we can get yeah, I can get the LNPs to send it out to you, no problem.
Fab. Okay, perfect. There we are. I think that's all of the questions.
Oh, amazing. Thank God for that.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure. If you've got any more, honestly, just email them my way, and I'll always do my best. If I don't know the answer, to get the answer for you, no problem.
Got a couple of comments I mean, can you see the chat? Just people thanking you, basically.
Thanks very much. No, I really appreciate people giving up their evening to come and listen. Hopefully you've learned something. But yeah, thanks ever so much.
Lovely. There we are. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And yeah, if you enjoyed, there's quite a few events and webinars going on over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I can keep an eye out on your emails if you're signed up to the NPT for Nature mailing list. And if you're not signed up, you can do so on our website. Yeah. So I will leave you with that. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. We'll start.